Shalom, shalom, everybody. Ariel Tzadok here from the KosherTorah School, found online at www.KosherTorah.com. Just a little timestamp. It is the 23rd of November, and it's a Monday evening here in Knoxville, Tennessee. Last Monday night, when we normally do our classes, I was unavailable. For those of you who follow us on the website, you know that I was out in Los Angeles filming for the new episodes for Ancient Aliens. And this season, I think it's for this season, we have some very interesting stuff, which needless to say, I'm not allowed to disclose beforehand. But what I will tell you is that, at least it's expected for February, watch for an Ancient Aliens special starring none less than Captain James T. Kirk himself, William Shatner, who presently is hosting the program, The Unexplained. So we had a really great discussion. It was William Shatner, a number of the other guests, of course, Giorgio was there, and many others, and we had a real great time, a real great discussion, and it's going to be for a 2-hour special airing, I think, in February. So watch for it on the History Channel coming soon. And of course, I think all of the episodes are available on Hulu. So also William Shatner's program, The Unexplained, is also there. And there are a number of those episodes, which yours truly is a welcome participant and guest. And we have some interesting things that we've discussed in this last time. We went, shall we say, where no man has gone before. Because, a point that I've always made to the Ancient Alien crowd. Yeah, you can see Sierra in the background. There she is, my little darling, hanging out on the couch. I was joking with the Rabbanit, and I was saying I'm going to call this the Rabbi and Sierra show. She says, don't you dare. I said, well, you come on camera. People are waiting for you. But of course, the Rabbanit, she's very tsanua. And day's going to come. One of these I'm going to drag her on here, and you'll see. But anyway, Sierra is at my side now because she wants her Scooby snack. There you go, darling. Knock yourself out. Yep, so she's happy. And that's what we're here at the KosherTorah School. Make everybody happy. So... yeah, that's a good one, right? But anyway, getting back to going where no man has gone before, which is actually going to bring us right into the topic of tonight's discussion, which, just to let you know, we kind of did discuss. But anyway, the issue is this. Where no man has gone before. What does actually that really mean? Well, the Ancient Alien crowds, as you know, was built upon the ideas and concepts of Erich von Däniken. Erich von Däniken wrote back, what was it, in the 60s, was it? His famous book, Chariot of the Gods, in which he believes that a lot of the old mythological legends and teachings are all really misunderstandings and are actually real visitations from flesh and blood extraterrestrials. Well, yes and no. And actually, I elaborated a lot on this in the programs, and God only knows what's going to make it through the editing. But if you look into my books, Aliens, Angels, and Demons, you'll see that everything they don't put on the show, I've put into books and is readily available for those of you who want to follow through. Well, in our discussions, and again, I don't know what's going to make it through, but I'll tell you this. I pushed the envelope and I said, guys, you got to understand, yes, there's a lot of misunderstandings about the ancient biblical teachings and what they really mean. But don't go spooking around with all of this fantasy, nonsense, unsubstantiated claims, the likes of Zecharia Sitchin and all his Anunnaki fantasy, because sorry, that's what it is. From a Hebraic point of view, I will critique his Hebraic scholarship and mark it faulty. And I have spoken to Sumerian scholars who also discount his claims. So that's from a scholarly point of view. But that doesn't mean that the old stories do not have an extraterrestrial connection, because by darn golly, they certainly do. And I remember one of our Alien conferences, someone asked me directly, Rabbi, how can you believe in life in outer space? How can you believe in extraterrestrials? Aside the fact that our rabbis do speak about this, again, documented in my book, Aliens, Angels, and Demons, it is very clear from logic. The Bible speaks of angels. Angels, we know, are not of this earth. And if they are not terrestrial of this earth, that makes them extraterrestrial, not of this earth. There you go. As to what they are, where they are, how they are, well, that is subject to, I would say, debate, but I don't want to use that word for a reason. When you debate a topic, you are discussing ideas. Like the old saying, how many angels can fit on the head of a pin? It's nonsense, because whenever you want to discuss something that cannot be verified, proven, observed, or experienced, how do you verify or ascertain right from wrong? How do you verify or ascertain truth from falsehood? You can't. So, in that respect, we must recognize biblically there's something going on. And I'm going to discuss with you, remember I told you the dates here, for what for us in our Torah tradition is this week's Torah portion, which is in Genesis Vayetze, which, let me get you the actual chapter and verse here. Chapter 28, verse 10 it starts. But anyway, I don't need to go like reading stuff to you. You go open up your own Bible, get your own Chumash, as we call it, and you could look in the details. But I want to give you a story. I want to take you into that story, and I want you to glean from it understanding. Because if we want to understand what I have termed the Occult Wars, I'm going to take you into the story from the Bible, because our sages have taught us a very profound lesson. They asked, what do we need the book of Genesis for in the first place? If the entire Torah is supposedly just laws and commandments, who needs the stories of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob? There's no commandments in there. Oh, you could point to be fruitful, multiply, circumcision. Yeah. Okay, fine, but we don't need all the details. Oh, yes, we do. Yes, we do. Hear and understand something. This is a point that's made in the Zohar in the name of Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai. And it doesn't matter if the Zohar was written by Moshe de Leon or not. It's completely irrelevant. Why? Because it doesn't invalidate the validity of the Zohar. The Zohar is written as a pseudepigrapha, just like the books of Enoch, right? It's teachings told in the names of someone else. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if it's the 12th century or the 2nd century. What it says is true. The story goes, Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, he states, if you look at our Torah, there's all kinds of stories with all kinds of, let's be blunt, boring, details which no one really cares about. And he says, if that was all that there is to the Torah as this surface level, we could write a better one today. That's true. If you look at the stories, these are the genealogies of this and that. And what's so spiritual about that, in all due respect? What kind of gleanings can I get out of that? And the answer is not really much. I mean, who cares who begot who from which and where? I mean, so what? But you're not looking at it correctly. The Torah, I don't care if you believe it came from Moses or from Ezra or from the aliens or from God only knows what source. And this actually is the most authentic, validating proof that for authorship theory that came out of anti-Semitic Germany in the 1900s has been falsified. That's been discounted, I think. The Elohist, the Yahwist, the priestly, the Deuteronomic, all that in quote scholarship is nothing more than just mindless prejudice. And I think the consensus of modern scholarship validates that. But getting back to the point, our Torah is a code. And a lot of people have known this throughout history. Sir Isaac Newton, remember the great famous scientist? Spent the majority of his life studying Kabbalah, looking for Torah codes, looking for the future understandings of things. And a lot of his Kabbalistic writings, oh, that's right, Sir Isaac Newton and the Kabbalah, that's right, went hand in hand. He understood a lot. He was looking for it as best as he could. And he's not the only one. I will share with you what I can. And I will let you know that a lot of these, in quote, clandestine black projects of governments, oh, they're looking in the Torah too. They're looking for the technology of how the Sefer Yetzirah works for dealing with issues in quantum physics and the like. Don't ask me for proofs of this, because you know I'm not going to reveal things. I shouldn't even have said what I did, but I did. So be it. Understand the value. There are secrets, there are codes in these words here, and we've only scratched the surface. There's a famous saying in Pirkei Avot that says, Hafuch ba v'hafuch ba dekula ba. Flip it and flip it because everything's in it. And when you understand a Hasidic teaching, actually it's an older Kabbalistic teaching, that when you gaze into the Torah with what we call Ruach HaKodesh, you can open it up anywhere, and using the terms it says you can see from one end of the world to the other. What does that mean? Well, when you have a psychic eye, meaning you have cultivated a level of psychic or intuitive acquisition, and that's going to play a vital role in what we need to discuss tonight with the life of Jacob, who is transformed into Israel. Remember how Enoch became Metatron? Well, a similar transformation occurred when Yaakov became Israel. Yeah, it was kind of the same physical guy, but everything inside was completely different. And that's important because we're called the children of Israel, and we better recognize what that is. And indeed, tonight's class, we're going to talk about Jacob and this transformational process. And it's all included here in these, in quote, secrets of the Torah. So this is what we need to focus on right now. We got to recognize that what we look at the surface is just that, surface. This is why in Judaism, Torah Judaism, we've had a two-tier religion, gosh, since the beginning. And one level was called the surface level, called Pshat. And the other level was called Sod, or secret. In biblical times, these were the paths of the biblical prophets. The experiential path, which later became called the Ma'aseh Merkavah, or Hechalot, or prophetic Kabbalah. This is, of course, what I teach here at our KosherTorah School. Now, there's the more popular forms of mysticism, or Kabbalah today, which is the academic forms that you find in Zoharic literature, Kitvei Hari, and all the rest. They're all wonderful. They all have great value and importance, but they're not experiential. They're not going to take you where no man has gone before. Oh, by the way, when I use the word man, I'm not being sexist here because man, Adam, in Hebrew always includes male and female. Ladies, you are as much part of man, male and female, as any male of the species. And it should give you wise insights into the great words of Pirkei Avot when it says, in a place where there are no men, strive to be a man. And I always emphasize, ladies, this means you too. Because, a little political comment here, we are under assault in Western civilization here for a complete masculation of masculinity, what makes a man a man. It has gotten so ridiculously extreme, they call what it is to be a man, they call it toxic masculinity. And they ascribe to toxic masculinity all the most disgusting and immoral expressions of human depravity. Well, that's not what a male or man is supposed to be. Can men do bad things? Yeah, so can women. I mean, it goes both ways. But a real man doesn't need to be defined by a book. Damn it, you'll forgive me. A real man knows what a real man is, and a real woman knows what a real man is. So I'm one of those last for the old chivalrous, gentlemanly type, and I don't give a flying fluke about what anybody has to say about that. I've seen some modern expressions from the, actually, I showed this to Rabbanit, we both laughed. Couldn't believe that this really was true. You've heard of the famous Italian designer Gucci? Well, on their website, they have a line of clothing which looks like little girls' dresses, like little frillies around here, like a little dress. and the men are supposed to wear it so as to make expressions against the toxic masculinity. In my day, we used to go around our black leather jackets, the slick back hair. Yep, still do. White t-shirts, the Marlboros rolled up in the sleeves. Yeah, those are the rocking days, baby. Don't tell me that because I'm an old man. I can't be young. She sometimes wonder who's older, her or me. But getting to the point, that kind of nonsense, that kind of vile evil is a result of this occult wars of which I'm speaking. Because you have to understand, like the Torah codes, the real ones, not the stuff with these numerical sequence jumpings that you see today being abused and used by all different characters left and right. No, I'm talking about the deeper stuff. The only way you access this, like I said, opening up the book and you see from one end of the world to the other. Speaking about seeing from one end of the world to the other, I wish I could flip the camera around so you can see from the other side of my room here. Another Scoopy snack for darling. There you go. Get to the couch. Anyway, somebody's reading me from New York City. I have two words for you. Get out! Seen from one end of the world to the other. The whole purpose of the Torah, Avraham Abulafia himself writes in his book, which is his commentary to the Torah on Genesis, he says, the whole purpose of the Torah is expand the mind. Expanding the mind means expanding consciousness. That, in biblical times, we called Ruach HaKodesh, or prophecy. That's what Maimonides calls it in the Moreh Nebuchim. Today we understand that as psychic development. It's not a gift. It's the natural development of every single human being. And this was the purpose of the Torah. The Torah was given to us to elevate souls, to get back to the level and the point where we're supposed to have been before what we call the fall in the Garden of Eden. And that requires psychic intuitive development, or in Kabbalah speak, activating the Sefirat Chokhmah, the Mochin, and to get the Chokhmah and the Bina, to put it all together so the Mochin can come down into Zah and raise the Partsuf. What does all that mean? Go read my stuff. Come on. Go into Walking in the Fire. I discuss all of this. You got to understand the Kabbalistic metaphors. But just because you understand them academically, unless you put them into practice, you ain't done nothing. All right? Haven't lost my New York accent there. But this is important, because the Torah and the original codes are here to teach us practice. So, with this note, understand, we're going to discuss now the life of a man. And I don't care what your interpretation, belief, or view is of the life of Jacob, the son of Isaac. I don't care if you want to say, well, he wasn't real, it's not history, it's just a myth. Who cares? The value of the story is what's important. And if you want to argue and debate historicity, as they say in Yiddish, a Gesundheit, argue and debate whatever you want, but leave me out of it. My years of arguing and debating and all that stuff, I'm over it. I have no patience for it anymore. Seeing is believing. And in my new book, Visions, all right? This is it, right here. Visions of the End of Days. It begins part one with a Kabbalistic view, a real prophetic Kabbalistic view, of the story of Daniel. I take the whole book of Daniel, and I now we've released the book of Daniel before, an ebook. Here's the first time it's available in paperback. But I've added to it, and I have in here a complete directive of how to interpret and understand dreams. Because without an understanding of dreams, people mess things up all the time. And one of the examples I give in the book here, oh, by the way, Visions is available exclusively on Amazon.com at this time. Go pick it up. It should be available everywhere around the world. So pick it up, look for it. You'll see how valuable it is. Enough said. But in it, I talk about dreams. And before we get into Jacob's dreams here, I'm just going to, again, mention as a detour for a moment, a dream that's found from a Jewish source, but embraced and adapted by the Christians and put in their Bible. And I'm specifically referring, I believe it was in the book of Acts, the dream of Peter, who was Jewish, where in which he dreamed he saw an entire, I think it was like a blanket or something of food coming down from heaven. And he says, eat, but it had unkosher food. And Peter said, I'm not going to eat it. It's not kosher. And a voice from heaven said, what God's declared clean or kosher, don't declare unclean. Now, if you read, it says right there in the book of Acts, Peter woke up and he understood what the dream meant. Because what the dream was saying was, make an outreach to non-Jewish people, today we call Noahites, and bring them into the fold. Remember, Yeshu, the historical individual, was said very clearly, it's recorded in the Christian Bible, only go to Jews. Not interested in Noahides, only interested in bringing back Jews to B'nai, to make them B'nai Torah. That was his idea. I'm not going to get into the details of Yeshu. In here, actually, I have an essay, which I included in part 3 of the book, which deals with the issue of Yeshu. Read. Anyway, what was Peter's dream? It wasn't about food. But the Christian tradition today says the laws of kashrut have therefore been nullified because of Peter's dream. No, it wasn't. No, it isn't. What kind of, it's so frustrating when people misunderstand or misinterpret, intentionally so. Jacob. The story of Jacob. Like the rabbis say, Ma'aseh Avot, Siman Labanim. The acts or behaviors, the paths, the lives of our forefathers are guidelines for us today. In psychology, Jungian psychology, we would call that archetypes. So the story of Jacob goes. Remember this. Let's review his life. All right? Jacob, the word Yaakov, that means a supplanter, which would kind of mean like a trickster. One who acquires through less than honorable ways. Jacob is not portrayed in the Torah as a really nice guy. Think about this. If you had a member of your family who is out working their doggy dogs off, and they come home emaciated and famished, and they say, oh, could I please have something to eat? And you turned around and said, well, then sell me your birthright first. Who says things like that? Think about it. Now, I don't know about you, but from what I know about brothers, if you had 2 brothers today, one who's the guy who stays around the house, the other's the big tough guy, and he comes home and he's emaciated, and he says to his little brother, hey, give me some soup to eat, I'm starved. And the little brother says, well, I'll only give it to you if you sign over to me your portion of Daddy's will. Now, if that happened today, you know what would happen? Big brother would take the soup ladle, beat the daylights out of his little brother, take the soup, and kick him in the butt and throw him out of the tent. That's what should normally happen. But, story goes, Esau sold off his portion out of the will. Okay. It's a nasty thing for Jacob to have done if you think about it. Story continues. So last week's Torah portion. All right. Comes to this whole story getting the patriarchal blessing from the family, the continuity. So it would be Abraham, Isaac, and Isaac wanted it to be Esau. Rivka got involved. Jacob got involved. All right. Everything went to Jacob now. Esau was so aside from himself, being ripped off by his brother twice. He said, I'm going to get this guy. I've had it. That's why Jacob's hightailing it. He's pretty much saying, you better get out of Dodge for a while. Chill out. So here he is now, on his way to good old Uncle Laban. And Uncle Laban's got his own reputation, you should know. Although we see only echoes of it in our tradition. If there was ever a real life dark side Sith Lord in the Bible, it was Laban. Well, you said, what about Balaam? Well, if you go into the old, Targum Yonatan, they say that Laban is actually Balaam, that he lived hundreds of years and became that. He's a real dark guy. All right, this is Uncle Laban, who is the grandfather of the children of Israel. This is such a profound thing. Just like the secrets of the house of David. If you remember, David The whole family came out of Ruth. Ruth comes out of Moab. Moab came out of between a father and his daughter. Incest. Nasty, nasty. But remember the whole story. Yehuda and Tamar later, right? Again, you just hanging around with hookers? What's going on there? Anyway, God. Remember him? Isaiah 45, chapter 45, verse 7. Author of both light and darkness, good and evil. Don't think that there's this war out there between good and evil duking it out. It's not true. Both sides are in the service of God in heaven. If you will, it's God in the middle playing both sides against the other, because that's the way of natural evolution and growth. So Jacob has within him both good and evil. And that's the profound thing, because his life is, I said, that transformation from the lowest to the highest. And his example, his story is our story. And that is why he is considered the father of Israel. Now we have Abraham as a great role model, who is the archetype of faith. All three of the Western world religions, which I think encompasses more than half the world population, look to Abraham as its father, as its role model and guide. And if you go look out there, you'll find in a number of different sources a curious connection between the Brahmin who came to India and beliefs that it was related to Abraham or Ibrahim. And there's a lot of connection there. There really is. Just like there was a connection in ancient Greece to Abraham. If you remember from the book of Maccabees, the Spartans, remember good old Leonidas, they all believed they were the sons of Hercules. And that Hercules, the real one, was actually married to a child or granddaughter of Abraham. But Jacob's our man. We say that Jacob's image is the image of the man above. How the heck did that happen? Of all the people, why not Moses? Why not Abraham? Why Jacob? Because Jacob did one thing that no other man has ever done. And that is, and we'll learn from next week's Torah portion, he fights with an angel and wins, completing the transformation from Jacob the man to Yisrael the archetype. Essentially, he became a Metatron. And we speak about the Metatron race in my Enoch course. The class is available in audio form, actually video, but on my YouTube channel. So go check that out if you want to learn. But getting back to the point here. Again? She's terrible, right? She's addicted to these things. Here, go. I was away all last week, so she stays by some friends of ours with all of our old pups. 1, 2, 3, 4 of her pups. They're all together, so it's for her. it's like a family where she just loves being out in the woods back in the old days. And she comes back here, and she's spoiled and everything else. So that's my darling for you. And I've always told you, don't you ever think for a second that all this is a distraction. There's no such thing as distractions. Remember I said good and evil, right and left, it's all from the center. So everything plays into it. Jacob, the man who became a Metatron, goes off because of the problems in the family. And remember, he now snatched the birthright. He snatched the blessing. And he's off. Gets to be knight. All kinds of curious codes there. Won't get into it right now. Go fund me for Sierra snacks. Yeah, thanks. The way she eats them, we probably need them. Time to go to sleep. We all go to sleep. But Jacob has a bizarre dream. He sees an image of a ladder going up to the heavens and malachim going up and down. Please remember, this is not a physical ladder. It's a dream. It's a symbol. A symbol of what, you may ask? That's the right question. question. What we have here is Jacob's psychic awareness beyond consciousness becoming in tune with and sensitive to an energetic flow, a vortex. There was a wormhole there that Jacob stuck his head into pretty much. And it wasn't in this physical world, but it was in a parallel energetic reality. Doesn't matter. You stick your head in there, your head gets caught up. And he experienced that. And his dream imagery projected it in his mind in the form that his intellect of a man 4,000 years ago, ballpark, would understand. And that is the way we need to understand dream interpretation, dream language, and all the rest. A ladder at Mahanaim. Well, that's what Mahanaim is not. That came later. This was Bet El, as he calls it. Now, understand the nature of dream interpretation and understand why Jacob is having the dream. Remember, Abraham had his dreams. Isaac had his dreams. We don't hear about Esau's dreams now, do we? So not only did Jacob get the part of the will, not only did he get the blessing, but apparently the force runs strong in his family, and he got the lion's share. So right from the beginning, we see his sensitivity, his psychic attunement. And now his transformational process begins. He wakes up. He recognizes it's a dream. And God, but only revealed to him, is Elohim. Even though it says Yud-Ke Vav-Ke, Jacob didn't understand the concept of Yud-Ke Vav-Ke yet. He only understood the Elohim. And he wakes up, recognizes it's a dream, and look at his language. He doesn't say, I saw God, hallelujah. No. He said, wow, that's a pretty cool dream. But he recognizes that a dream is yet an experience of a reality not yet materialized in this physical world. And no guarantee that it ever will be. Because remember, dreams from our point of view exist in a quantum state, meaning they may or may not materialize, or they may or may not materialize in one form or another. A very important point that is made in the Gemara, Tractate Berachot, that you had professional dream interpreters. And it says that one of the rabbis, they would go to like different dream interpreters, and everyone would give a different interpretation, kind of like Rorschach psychology, psychoanalysis. But it says each one of the dream interpretations came true. What the heck? Doesn't a dream supposed to mean something? It could mean some things. You see, that's the thing. In a quantum reality, all right? Scientists, you know this better than me. Things are not yet in the singularity of a material form, and they can exist in potentials, simultaneous, mutually exclusive potentials. The whole idea of Schrodinger's cat, if you're not familiar with it, go look it up, where the cat is not alive or dead, it is both alive and dead. How can it be alive and dead at the same time? Curious. But that's what we have in a dream. That's why you should never tell your dreams to someone unless you really trust them. And you should never ask for an interpretation unless you really want it. Because your dream vision can be interpreted in many different ways. And if you're going to collapse the potential from the dream image into a reality, make sure you do it in a positive way. So, I've been a counselor, psychological counselor, pastoral counselor for, 30 years. And with my Jungian training in psychoanalysis, I do dream interpretation all the time. But if any of you have ever approached me, please don't send me an email and tell me you're dreaming an email. What the heck am I supposed to know? I got to talk to you. We got to have a counselor. I got to get to know a little bit about you so as to recognize the context of your dream. Well, Jacob understood these things too. So his first words after his dream was, if this comes true, if this is real, if the quantum potential materializes in a physical reality, then, and if you might add, only then, I will make this the house of God, and I will give you 10% and everything else. It was conditional. And there was no hallelujah moment here. Long story short, go read the portion for yourself. You don't need to give you the details. Jacob gets to the house of his uncle Laban, and there he sees that young, hot, sexy babe Rachel, and immediately falls in love. You know what it's like when an old man meets and falls head over heels for a younger woman? Go ask the Rabbanit, she'll tell you. So yeah, I sympathize. Thank God I didn't have to wait 7 years for the Rabbanit. I don't know if she would have had the patience of waiting for me that long. I would have worked for her, but I don't know if she would have waited for me. But anyway, on a serious note, you know, I empathize with that because Jacob is an older man. Rachel was a young woman. But anyway, long story short, we all know what happened. All right, works for Rachel 7 years, and comes to the time of the wedding to get him nice and drunk, and wakes up in the morning, and there is Leah. What the heck is that all about? Well, understand, Rachel obviously must have been complicit. Leah certainly was. You don't think that Jacob, you know, could tell the difference? Well, in those days, remember, people weren't promiscuous like they were today. So it was very different. And in that respect, Rachel obviously must have been complicit. I don't think like they tied her up and threw her, you know, into the tent, you know, bound and gagged so as to stop this. She knew what was going on, and she condoned it. Okay, Jacob the trickster got tricked. He got duped by the dark Lord Uncle Laban, and he didn't see it coming. Okay, hey, God, the author of good and evil, light and dark, has his purpose, right? Out of Leah, we have King David, we have Levi, we have half the tribes of Israel, all right? All came from Leah. And there are big, big, deep Kabbalistic secrets between Rachel and Leah. They become Sephirotic Partsufim of their own. And Chaim Vital discusses this in such great detail. When you understand the psychology of the nature of their personalities, you go, wow, that's really intense. Leah was the mother of the introverts. Rachel becomes the mother of the extroverts. Let's leave it at that for right now. Okay, long story short, moving right along, works another 7 years, he marries Rachel. Mazel tov. Now, it's time to build his fortune. But remember something about good old Uncle Laban, good old Dark Lord. Yeah, look at the emperor in Star Wars as your example here of Laban, right? How do you think he would feel if Darth Vader was going to make moves on him to take over the Empire? Well, if you know anything about the legends of the Sith in the Star Wars, you know, legends, it's all fantasy. There's only two Sith, the master and the student. You had more than that, they'd kill each other. So the story goes. And the way that the student overcomes to become the new master, he has to kill the old master. Well, don't you think that the good old Emperor Palpatine is always watching over his shoulder, waiting for Vader to get him? Well, that's the way it was between Laban and Jacob. You see, Jacob had a blessing, and Laban could sense it. He could feel the presence of the Force in Jacob. And as a Dark Lord, he says, I'm going to siphon that energy off to myself. Kind of like stealing. And that's why he brought Jacob close. That's why he gave him Leah first and Rachel next, so as to siphon off the energy more and more time. Jacob picked up on this, and he recognized this. And Laban, remember, in those days, you got paid for work. How? No, they didn't have cash in those days. They didn't pay you in silver and gold. They paid you in barter, which is commodities. In those days, it was sheep. So Laban was always messing around with Jacob, saying to him, okay, you can have this level of sheep, you can have that level of sheep, etc., and so on. And every time that things started to get a little bit too much to Jacob's benefit, Laban changed the deal. So Laban, the Dark Lord, who's trying to siphon off this energy from Jacob's going, what the heck? Every time I try to take stuff away from him, things go back to him. And so Laban is fighting a battle with a power that even Jacob yet does not yet fully understand. The force was very strong with Jacob, but Jacob did not yet understand it. He is growing. That's why he needed both Rachel and Leah, because he needed the full materialization of expressions of personality, and eventually brought in, of course, the handmaidens to have what we call the quaternity, or the four, representing Yud-Kei Vav-Kei, and all these things, the secrets of the four sides. Well, that's another, detailed metaphor for another time. But comes a point, Jacob and Laban get together and they say, okay, final payment. Jacob says, I want the sheep that are going to be spotted and speckled and streaked. Akudim, Nikudim, and Birodim. And Laban says, good deal, agreed. He calls his sons, take all those spotted, speckled, and streaked sheep. Take them out of here. I don't want the breeding. I don't want anything. Jacob could have nothing. Okay? Okay. Now, you might think that Jacob would just get on his knees and say, Lordy, Lordy, I'm sorry. Oh, please help me. And God would say, certainly, my son. None of the kind. It says that Jacob had a dream. And it says that in his dream, here's this guy, this dreamer again, where in which it said an angel shows him, get the spotted, the speckled, and the streaked. And they taught him something with rods, something really weird, that the teachings of the Torah do not explain what these rods were and how, by putting them in front of sheep, when they bred, they would breed spotted, speckled, and streaked. Kind of like Sierra. And Jacob learned the secrets of these rods. It was a force that you might say, well, it was some type of natural magic. I don't think there's anything magical about it. Rabbi Chaim Vital elaborates a good section of his entire Torah as based upon the secrets of these Akodim, Nikodim, and Berodim, which, to sum it up, we recognize as being the power of will, intuition, and mind, and how the three materialize to become expressed in form. Essentially, what Rabbi Chaim is talking about, just sitting here waiting for another Scooby snack. Essentially, what Rabbi Chaim is talking about is how to take the greatest power of all, pure raw will, Keter we call it, and how to collapse it from its quantum expression into its material expression. This is the secret that was shown Jacob by the power of these rods. All right? A rod, kind of like a Scooby snack. There you go, darling. Do you know this is your fourth one? You little piglet. You can all blame me. I'm the one who spoils her. All right? That's just me. What can I say? But anyway, this was the secret that Jacob understood. Somehow in his dreams, his consciousness is expanding. He's growing stronger with the force. He's tapped into the female side within himself, which is materialized through Leah. Remember, the concealed, the introverted, and now Rachel, the extroverted, the revealed. A whole bunch of the stuff about the Partsufim in Kabbalah talk about this. And now he's energized, and the focus of energy is with him. And he is able now to transcend and materialize the quantum element of the abstract Keter. He recognizes the path through the Sefirot. He learned it, not from any book. There were no books that talked about this. No, the Sefer Yetzirah wasn't around, nor was the book of Raziel. That's all legend. Jacob had to feel the force. He had to learn the way of the tree of the Sefirot intuitively. And if we could go back into history in like a time machine and sit him down and say, well, what is going on? It's not like he would have sat and wrote a book like, Rebbe Moshe Cordovero. Oh, let me explain to you the doctrine of the Sefirot as it's written in the Zohar, and this one, that one. No. He could only tell you of his experiences, what he felt. Notice I emphasized the word feelings. You see, when we talk about psychic development, we always apply the Hebrew term mochin, mind or brains. When you hear parapsychological development today, you always hear it referred to as mental. It's not mental in that way. It's psychic, it's intuitive, it's heart-based, it's intuitive-based, it's feelings, not thinking. That's how come women, who, as you know, are much more grounded in mind thought with heart thought, why women tend to be more intuitive and psychic. I'll give you an example. As you know, that Abba needs a very, very young woman. God bless her. She doesn't have the training that I have. She doesn't have the years of experience that I have. But there are times when she has this strong compulsion. No, this is whatever. And I've learned from my experience of observing her to listen, because she has that psychic, that little essence within her. Now, you can tell when the intellect gets involved, how it's not pure. But there are times when it's very pure and it just shines straight through like a laser beam. Boom. And a man knows when the wife talks like that and knows when to listen. Remember the whole story like Abraham and Sarah? And Abraham didn't want to listen. God said, no, you listen to her. Right? The heart force, Tiferet. That's what Jacob connected to, the heart. And heart is Zer Anpin. That's where Jacob is. And he only got through that connection from Malchut to Yesod to Tiferet, the connection through his Nekevot. Jacob became powerful. All that energy that Laban was trying to siphon off, that he just couldn't grab, Jacob now grabbed and took back. And he started to overwhelm the Dark Lord himself. As much as the Dark Lord projected all of his negative energy, Jacob was just able to block it and projected it back. And Jacob became stronger and stronger, and Laban became weaker and weaker. And it got to the point where Laban knew it. The other sons knew it. And there's only one resolve, one way that you can actually neutralize an occultic opponent. You can beat them up physically. There are two guys out there who you can get and they'll beat up any occultic. Their names, Smith and Wesson. You know what I mean when I say that. I remember years ago watching the old Ralph Bakshi cartoon called Wizards. And it's a very interesting movie. Long story of it, real summed up. A million years in the future, the world, after the world's been destroyed, it's being rebuilt. And you got wizards, and you got good guys, bad guys, and you have a woman as children, just like a Jacob and an Esau. One guy's good, one guy's bad. As their youths, they get in a big fight of magic, all right? And the good son casts out the bad son. He goes out and dedicated to destroy the world. He finds old, in quote, Nazi magic is about to destroy the world. The good brother realizes he has to confront the evil brother. And in the final scene of the movie, we're expecting to have the ultimate battle of good versus evil. The good brother says to the evil brother, all right, I'm going to show you a trick that mom showed me when you weren't around. All right? Pulls out a 45. Bam, bam. Evil's done. That becomes a very important scene. Because if you remember, Esau, terrified of his brother Jacob, comes after him with 400 men. Remember who Esau was. Esau was the guy who could have beaten the snooties out of his snotty little brother at any time. He doesn't need 400 men. But Jacob has become strong. He has become powerful. He not only stole the physical wealth, the blessing, which is still potential and not actual. He now has become strong. And Another dream comes to him, says, time to go, buddy. Yes, sir. Packs up the family and rocks and rolls. But Rachel, closest to Jacob's heart, in Jacob's consciousness, but not his conscious mind, steals the power of the dark side of Laban, steals his teraphim, which were his ways of divination. And you can read in Menachem Tziyuni, he gives an interesting old legend of what the teraphim were. Apparently in the ancient days they would murder a child, and they would decapitate it, and do all kinds of things to its head, and do all kinds of rituals, kind of like a shrunken head in certain Aborigine traditions. And the spirit or the nefesh soul of the departed would be entrapped, but able to connect to the other dimensions and communicate back and forth what is not seen. So these teraphim, or like shrunken heads, right? Rachel, notice it wasn't Leah. Rachel, who is the expression of the extrovert, the one who knew and understood the ways of this world. In Kabbalah, the partsuf of Rachel is called Ikeret Habayit, the essence of the house. She knew and recognized that dark force of daddy. And she therefore stole the teraphim. Scoopy snack number 5. You had dinner. Terrible. She's just like a kid. But she understood. Rachel understood. And she steals the teraphim. Laban is now blinded. Strange, I couldn't sense this. Yeah, I wonder why. He goes to look for his teraphim. They're gone. I'm going to get this guy. He steals my gods? Oh my goodness. He psychically blinded Laban. Stripped away his power. He comes running after Jacob. He is not in a happy mood. He does not plan to do nice things to his son-in-law. He wants to kill him. That night, Elohim, the same Elohim who spoke to Jacob in all these dreams, says, you don't touch my man. You don't touch Jacob. You don't speak to him good or bad. You say your goodbyes, you get that blank out of there. Laban is one who knows these powers around us. He knows the invisible world. He knows the force. And if the force comes and warns him, he knows to listen. So, they yell and scream back and forth, and they made a rule. Good and evil cannot exist in the same place at the same time. Like it says in the Bible, in the book of Psalms. Sur merah ve'oseh tov. Separate from evil in order to do good. Understand that. Especially, that's a big lesson for our society, the United States, Western Europe, secular world today. A cleansing is upon us. I think you all know what's coming. A cleansing. Sur merah, separation from evil before the good can come. This is what's necessary. It's part of prophecy. Visions of the end of days. I published it in time. You go check it out. And now it's time for them to part. Laban stays in his, Jacob stays in his, and the two now have a great havdalah. We must learn this havdalah, this separation from ourselves. Now I'm going to share with you something very interesting. I hope the Rabbinite doesn't get upset with me for sharing with this, but I'll tell you a story. When I was out in California, the Rabbinite took upon herself a very dubious job, which I can only praise her for. She went and cleaned the bathroom that I use. Brave woman. God bless her. And she was going through the drawers, and she's going, I always have reading material in the bathroom. And one of the things that I have a book on alchemy in there. I have an old French grimoire of like magic in there. And she was, what the heck are you doing with this? She calls me, what are you doing with like a book like that? And I said, well, according to halacha, you're not supposed to think of divrei Torah in, the bathroom. You're supposed to, only think of things that are appropriate. I said, where else could I have a book like that? Other than in the bed. That's where all the is. That's what's in the book. But like Rabbi Eliezer says in Pirkei Avot, Dalashiv Lepikoros, you have to know these things in order to respond. I emphatically encourage you, don't go out reading this stuff. But if you're a rabbi, you got to know. So when I talk to you about the occult wars and how the occult works, I've done my homework. And Rabbi found I do my homework. Okay? This is important that you recognize and understand that this stuff is real. And like Rabbi Eliezer says, you must know how to respond. The only way you can make a havdalah, separation between good and evil. Yeah, God's in both, but that doesn't mean that good and evil is supposed to be together in us. You got to recognize what is evil and separate from it. But at the same time, you must never confuse something that is not evil and call it such. That's the tree of knowledge, good and evil, that messes up our minds. We have such feelings of guilt and shame. All of that's got to be resolved. Just get rid of it. That's not the Torah way. There are things that we do in this world which are normal, healthy, and good. We are not stoics. We enjoy the blessings of this life and the good things in this world. All right? And that means enjoying good foods, having a very healthy, and I don't care how wild your sex life is with your appropriate, married partner, all that other kind of, don't think this stuff is bad and evil. It's not. It's sacred and good. Go out and do all the wild stuff that you want to do. But at the same time, you do it in Kedusha, holiness. And it doesn't matter, we can't do that. I can't go and enjoy a big juicy steak in Kedusha and holiness. Sure you can. I can't do wild sexy stuff with the wife because it's not holy. Sure you can. Period. End of story. And for those of you who are single, find yourself a proper partner, please. You're never going to have psychological development until you got the balance maintained in that respect. But getting back to this, Yaakov is our man. Yaakov understood. He had the power. In the few minutes I have left now, we can jump into next week's Torah portion. All right? We know what happens with Rachel because of stealing Teraphim. All right? But now, in order for Jacob to become Yisrael, there is one more step he has to take. He has the material, physical blessing. He has the psychic, which is the blessing from Isaac. But now he has to become the recipient of the angelic continuity. And you know the story that it says a man came and wrestled with Jacob. And yet that man we know is an angel. Well, who was this angel? All the commentaries are going to tell you, this is the guardian angel of Esau. Okay. There's a big secret with that too. How did that angel get there? All of a sudden the angel says, I'm going to attack Jacob. I'm going to come in there and kick his butt. No. Jacob conjured the angel. Jacob called upon the angel. Jacob dragged the angel down. And Jacob attacked the angel. That's the truth. And this angel was one of the Metatrons. This angel, the guardian angel of Esau. Remember, according to Isaac, Daddy Isaac, Isaac's idea of the patriarchs would have been Abraham, Isaac, and Esau. The angel of the family, the angel of the covenant. Where's he going to go? The bloodline would say he would go with Esau. But in this world, the physical, taken by Jacob. In the psychic world, the blessing was taken by Jacob. In order for Jacob to seal the entire shift from one side to the next, from left to right, from below to above, he had to grab the angel. The angel did not choose to go to Jacob. Jacob brought the angel down and demanded his submission. You go look at the story. It says they wrestled all night long. And times to come, the angel says, gotta go. He said, you ain't going nowhere, buddy. Not until you bless me. You give me the power. You become mine. And the face of the angel changed from the face of Esau to the face of Jacob. Changed from the face of Samakel to the face of Metatron. And thus Jacob's face was now emblazoned in the Merkava above. And the angel says, you are no longer this supplanter, this cheater, this human. You have now defeated heaven. You are now the master of heaven. You are the prince of heaven. You have brought to earth the Yisraelite, the Israel level of soul. Israel is always believed to be a synonymous term with being Jewish. And according to history and Pshat, that's absolutely true. The children of Israel, the bloodline, descendants of the 12 tribes, etc., and so on, that's all true. But according to the Kabbalistic and the deeper understanding of things, Yisrael are the fifth element, the highest levels of soul, those who accomplish this ability, this level of psychic development and acquisition. Call them Ruach HaKodesh, call them prophets, call them whatever. These are the ones who are the highest. Number 6. You are now officially a prisoner in the village. Congratulations, number 6. I am not a number. I'm a free man. If you don't know where that's from, go look it up. Jacob became Yisrael. We today need to become Yisrael. Doesn't matter what your bloodline is. Doesn't matter if you're Jewish, Gentile. None of that matters. Tana Dev Eliyahu, I've written about this a million times, right? Everyone can develop their psychic intuitive abilities to receive what we call Ruach HaKodesh. It all depends on what you do. That's why I devoted the whole KosherTorah schools to teach specifically this. We must accomplish the Yisrael, the Israelite level of soul. That, especially now, is vital and essential. Quick word. You all know what's going on in the world today. You don't need me to tell you. You see the divisions. You see the strife. You as an individual have a psychic power and ability to project positivity, healing into the collective consciousness to seal the breach. You just project out the energy like a light beam going into the darkness. Don't worry about where it's going. God will direct it. But you have to know you have that power. And you just sit back and say, well, I'm beat. Yeah, this is the way it is. Nothing I can do. And you sit and rant and yell and scream, just like my friend in Israel, who he knows who he is because he's listening to me right now, blah, 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 blah. And I tell him, shut up with all the negative. Be positive. Project your positivity. Make a difference. Be an Israel and not just a Jacob. And accept and receive the promises that God has said for Bnei Yisrael in the Bible. Don't confuse the pshat of what it is to be Israel with the sod of what it is. And that's the big secret behind the occult wars. There are a lot of powers that be behind us. There are a lot of things, forces out there. We can call them malachim, you can call them shedim, you can call them aliens, or whatever. They're pretty much all the same, whether you know it or not. And they got their agenda. That's like it says in the book of Daniel, Watchers, chapter 4. Read visions, you'll see all about it. And you will see, you will know. This is God's world, not ours. And each and every one of us has a responsibility and an obligation to choose wisdom and not foolishness, and to do what we need to do. Earlier today, I published an essay which came to me because the words of William Shakespeare was ringing through my ears the other night. Lord, what fools these mortal be, from Midsummer's Night Dream. And I wrote this about, what about fools? Who are the fools? It's you'll find it on Facebook. You'll find it on YouTube, my Patreon page. It's out there. And it's important. Pay attention to these things. Because now, more than anything else, not only do we need to think positive, We need to psychically project positive energy to make a difference. And you can't just sit back in your nice little comfy chair and make believe nothing is wrong, because there's a lot wrong. And like Jacob, you're going to need to fight. Fight the modern day Labans, fight the modern day Labans, and recognize that they come in all different forms and packages today with very deceptive faces. And those who are projecting, yes, we're the good guys. That's what Laban said too. As I'm sure Pharaoh said, as I'm sure Bilam said, and all the others. Learn to be Israel. Feel the energy and project it out in positivity. Make a difference. Don't ever doubt what you can do. Don't believe delusions of grandeur. None of us are Eliyahu. None of us are Mashiach. But that doesn't mean that we can't tap into that energy, however small it is, and project the positivity into the collective. So whatever your prayers are, whatever your materializations are, whatever your visualizations are, don't matter the details. Get into the essence. Make a difference. Because that is what it means to be Israel. And that is how we not only fight the occult wars, but win. Take this to heart. Tiferet Jacob Israel. And in the wise words of the great sage Hillel, Zil Gamar. Go now and do it. So, from the Rabbanit who's in the other room, from good old Sierra on the couch, and me, thank you for being here. Be'ezrat Hashem, we'll see you all next time. God bless. Check us out, KosherTorah.com. Check out Visions, the End of Days, Amazon.com. Protection from Evil is back again. It's available. And if you're watching this on YouTube, hit the like button, please. Subscribe to our channel. You do all that business kind of stuff that we need to do. And guys, I'm here for you. Please be here for me. Thanks for your support. See you all next time. God bless.